Yeah, here are some anomalies in the normal Christian way of thought that you must have considered if you got into Christianity, which don't really make sense. God is all-knowing, all-powerful, all-wise, immanent, and eternal and absolute. Why did God not stop the fall of man? Also, if the fruit is some literal fruit or some test of obedience, then that makes God dysfunctional at best or psychopathic at worst. If I, as a grandfather, take my grandchildren and give them a test that can result in some harm to them if they fail this test, then the parents would quite rightfully stop this grandchild, which is their child. That makes a whole lot of sense. And yet we attribute this to God, that God is making some kind of test, that if we fail it, we will die. And the caveat is that God told us that we will die. If I tell my child, don't eat this stuff, otherwise you will die, and I use that as my defense to the police chief or the Department of Justice or whatever, they will just brush this aside. This is an irresponsible person, a psychopathic person, an unreliable person. So this is something which we need to consider about God. God is not this, obviously, but there's no real answer as to why God could not prevent the fall of man. And yet, in the exposition of the divine principle, chapter 2, part 1, chapter 2, speaking about the fall, the section that it concludes with, section 6, gives 3 very precise reasons as to why God could not intervene or interfere with the fall of man. And also, the whole principle is just an amazing deep truth that makes sense of the Bible. If you haven't read the divine principle, you can't really make sense of the Bible. Also, Jesus gave many warnings that it would not be easy to recognize the Lord of the second coming. Why did he say this? Because he was frustrated, because he wanted to be believed and followed, yet he was not. From the point of view of the Jewish leaders, there was no Elijah, because John the Baptist denied he was the Elijah. Even though Jesus' disciples, like people, thought that when Jesus declared John the Baptist as Elijah, in spite of John denying that he is the Elijah, that Jesus just said this to make his claims believable. So Jesus had much less credibility in the eyes of the people than did John the Baptist. So this is Jesus basically speaking. He wanted to be believed and followed. He did the miracles in order to be believed and followed, just as Moses did when they came out of Egypt to go into Canaan. The mighty miracles that Moses did was in order to show to the people that, the power of God was with Moses. So Jesus also did miracles that the leaders and people basically said that by the power of Beelzebub, that is Satan, Jesus is doing these miracles, even though Jesus gave very, good logic as to why that could not be the case. So Jesus gave many warnings that it would not be easy to recognize the Lord of second coming. He said it will come upon you like a snare. It will come upon you just like a thief in the night. Also, when the Lord comes, will he find faith? So there was a lot of faith at the time of Jesus, but this faith was misguided because there's no Elijah, there's no Messiah, and Jesus seemed to be an imposter. So even though Jesus did all these mighty works, it actually did no good at all. So these warnings that Jesus gave was basically to the Christians of today, to know of a surety that the Lord will not come with signs to be observed. The Lord will be rejected and suffer many things first. This is Luke 17:25. And as I said, coming suddenly upon you like a snare or a thief in the night. It will not be easy to recognize the Lord of the second coming. But if the Lord does come on a cloud, nobody would dare to go against the Messiah, who came in such a way with a trumpet call from heaven and, mighty signs in the sky that every eye will see him and this kind of thing. So, these are warnings that we have to take seriously in these last days. If you don't think these are the last days, then there's frankly something wrong with you. The world is really crazy right now with this weaponized virus, which is basically invading so many countries, and with such an orchestrated way of causing disruption. So Jesus himself said that the Daniel 7 prophecy applied to Jesus. The Daniel 7 prophecy applies to Jesus. Jesus said so because he said, all the law and the prophets prophesy until John. He said that in Matthew 11:13. So not coming in some overt way, it's coming without signs to be observed. And the only way that these prophecies that Jesus gave could be valid is if the Messiah comes in a way that people don't expect. He's born on the earth exactly as was Jesus and exactly as was Adam, actually. Adam didn't come in a mysterious way. He was born also. And Jesus also was born on the earth, as we know, and celebrate that at Christmas. So, I've also heard some Christians also say that Jesus showed his human side when he was praying in Gethsemane to avoid death. And yet young Nathan Hale, in the American War for Independence, made this incredible declaration. He regretted that he only had one life to give for his country. And even though Nathan Hale is an exemplary patriot, that he is not greater than Jesus, who is the Messiah. So I'm urging you, Christians, to really have a rethink about the Lord of the Second Coming. I would recommend that you check the exposition of the Divine Principle, which is from Reverend Moon, and have a look at this. It sets out things incredibly logically, and it's logical, it's heartful, and it's rational. Everything is rational, and really makes a whole lot of sense. And if you read the Divine Principle, you can totally make one straight story out of the Bible, and not many different are the case. When you take some things literally, or you take some things figuratively, it puts a whole different perspective on things. We have to be clear what is literal, what is figurative. We have to know what is God's will, why God created mankind, why God did not interfere in the fall of man, and why the Messiah who's coming. And when Reverend Moon speaks about the Lord of the Second Coming as being true parents, this is incredibly relevant because we came from fallen false parents. Therefore, we need true parents. This is a far better description of the Messiah or Christ than any that's available right now. The Messiah and Christ is not some magical figure, but is somebody who fulfills their responsibility as Adam should have done from the beginning. The first human ancestors did have a choice. The first chosen people had a choice. They could follow Jesus or deny him. And also, if Jesus was supposed to die on the cross, then why isn't Judas Iscariot praised and exalted and made a saint? These things totally don't make sense. Crazy Christianity. Good gracious me. Yeah, have a rethink and get to me. I'm interested in people who are really sincerely interested to find out the truth. But yeah, I totally recommend you read the Exposition of Divine Principle first. Check it out. And then you've got some basis that we can have a meaningful talk together. Okay, thank you. Bye.